King Menes. I am King Menes. I ruled the land of Egypt for 62 years. At one time, there were two countries, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. There were two different kings, and each had a different crown. When I went to Lower Egypt, I wore a red crown. I ruled the northern part of the land near the mouth of the Nile, where the water flowed into the Mediterranean Sea. When I went to Upper Egypt, I wore a white crown. I ruled the southern part of the land closer to the base of the mountains. The Nile River is the only source of water in my country of Egypt. The Nile is the longest river in the world. It is nearly 4,000 miles long. With such a large river, you would think people would get along, but the two countries still fought with each other constantly. The people in both of my countries were very similar. They spoke the same language. They worshiped the same gods. They had the same culture, but for some reason, they could not get along. I decided to change this. I conquered both countries. I began my rule in 3100 BC. I was often called Ohe and Mina, which meant the fighter. I combined the two regions into one country, but it didn't help. The people kept fighting amongst themselves. I needed to help the people think of themselves as one country. At first, I wore the red crown for ceremonies in Lower Egypt and the white crown when I attended ceremonies in Upper Egypt. Eventually, I had a special crown made called the double crown. It was not white. It was not red. It was a mix of white and red, and it did the trick. The people started calling their combined land the Two Lands. Over time, the two lands became known as Egypt. I also commissioned artwork of me tying a reed and a lily together. These were the symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt. By tying them together with a knot, people began to understand that we were now one country. Eventually, the king of Egypt was called Pharaoh, which means two houses. I began the first dynasty or ruling family in Egypt. I started the first dynasty or ruling family. To help my kingdom, I married Princess Nehotipe from Lower Egypt when I was 15 years old. I founded the city of Memphis in the middle of the floodplain of the Nile River. The land was rich and grew a surplus of food. It was also a great place to enjoy the sweet northern breeze. I built a huge dam around the city to protect it from the inundation or annual floods. I showed the people that I am so powerful that I can protect them from the annual floods. When I built my tomb, I built two tombs. I did not want my people to argue about where I was buried. No one would know which tomb I was buried in and which one was just an empty shrine. One day I went hunting near the Nile River. I upset a hippopotamus in the river. The hippopotamus bit me with his huge tusks. I died soon after. I had ruled for 62 years.